What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Dairyland Drive podcast. Collin, along with Mike and Riley, always going to bring you some Packers training camp preview talk, boys. The wait is just about finally over. It's been a tough stretch of sports. I know Mike's had the Brewers a little bit. Riley's had the Tour de France to get him by these last month or so. But training camp starts this week for our Green Bay Packers. How excited are we that football is back and right around the corner?
Super excited. About time.
Yeah, something to talk about, actually, that I actually give a shit about.
Amen to that. Well, yeah, I think that starts on Wednesday. Players are going to start reporting. The shareholders meeting is Friday, so a lot of fun activities and fun things to do in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in parentheses, Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin, where actually Lambeau Field is. Don't forget that. But we're going to talk a little top 5 storylines here for Packers training camp. And just kind of break it down, give you a little preview from our perspective of what we're looking forward to or looking at for this upcoming month or so. But before we get there, got to go back to our Spotify comments, and he is on fire. Sam Soda, another comment, another week of listening. We really appreciate it. As always, Sam, thanks for listening and thanks for commenting. And here was his comment after last episode when we were talking about the Mount Rushmore of Packers players from the past 25 years. He says, first 4 names that came to mind in my Mount Rushmore were Rodgers, Woodson, Crosby, and Bakhtiari in that order. I get where Collin is coming from with Favre, especially since he was the guy that made me fall in love with the Packers, but feel like the other guys did it better for longer with the Packers. So his 4, Rodgers, Woodson, Crosby, Bakhtiari. I don't think there's really any arguing that all those were kind of brought up before. Pretty good names, but any reaction to that from one of our favorite listeners, Sam?
Sam knows ball. That's all I got to say. Sam knows ball.
Okay. A little quiet on the other Soda brother front. Haven't heard from Max in a while, so hope all is going well down there in Madison, Max. Feel free to comment. Let us know how we're doing this after this episode. But cool. Well, let's get into Packers training camp. The bikes, the kids, they'll be in line starting Wednesday. A lot of excitement, and we're going to bring you our top 5 storylines to follow for Packers training camp. So, number 1, the biggest position battles. I think there's going to be some fun position battles for this camp. I'm just going to preface a little bit, and then you guys can kind of get into it. I think offensive line has a couple. Wide receiver, depending how you look at it and maybe the different sets or different formations, probably going to be a lot of guys in that room of who's going to get on the field. And then for me, edge rusher, who is that second edge rusher on the opposite side, maybe of Rashawn Gary. So if you guys want to go into any of those 3 or have your own top position battle that you're looking forward to, I'll leave it very, very broad. When I say biggest position battles these upcoming months on either side of the ball, Mike, what is the first position that you're looking at that you're most excited about?
I'm starting with offensive line. Just got the news today that Zach Tom got extended, so that's big news, solidifying that right tackle position. But also getting some news that Elton Jenkins is going to start camp on the non-football injury list, and there's been some speculation out there that he's kind of playing hardball. He's got some kind of quote-unquote injury. This is his way of playing hardball with the organization, trying to get some guaranteed money for this, presumably his last year in Green Bay. It's going to be fascinating to see which 5 shakes out as their best 5. What LaFleur likes to say, they like to go with their best 5. Whether Elton Jenkins is eventually gonna be a part of that, if he's really gonna play hardball and sit out for who knows how long. Is Jordan Morgan gonna win a spot? If Elton doesn't come along, who plays center? Is it Sean Ryan? Is it Jacob Monk? Um, who knows? I'm gonna be fascinated by the big boys up front and see how that shakes out.
Yeah, that's definitely where I'm going to go too. Just going to try to stay positive and say Elton Jenkins, they get that whatever guaranteed money or whatever it is issue worked out. Um, so right guard and left tackle are obviously my specific positions of needs. What are they going to do with Rasheed Walker, with Jordan Morgan at left tackle, and then right guard? Um, on Ryan from last year, obviously it was fine. They could try Morgan there. I've been loud about hopefully they don't. Hopefully they just leave him at left tackle, give him a shot at one position because the footwork and all the stuff is completely different, like two different planets. Um, I've been obviously on the Belton train at right guard just because of the comments they made post draft. They spent a second round pick on him, so obviously they're high on him. He kind of matches the Aaron Banks signing of the left guard spot. So those specifically would be my two main ones. If I'm going to go anywhere else, it's actually two positions that Collin didn't mention. That third linebacker, I've been high on Isaiah Simmons. I think he's an X factor if he can play. With the two tight end sets that the Lions are going to throw, that the Bears are now going to throw, if you get an athletic guy out there that's also a hybrid that can cover a tight end out of linebacker, you can still load the box, do some stuff. And then it's not really a position battle, but just like it's going to happen at nickel corner. Are they going to put Hobbs in there and start Valentine outside? Are they going to leave Hobbs outside and give Bullard the first shot there? So, I mean, it is a battle, I guess. It's just how does that slot corner? There's four guys for three spots there. How does that all shake out? I think it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I agree. Starting on the offensive line, it's going to be fascinating to see, when they rep, that first team period rep, who's going to be the first five out there, especially with Elton Jenkins not, starting camp on the field, like you mentioned, Mike, who's going to be the starting center. I think that could be really fascinating because that probably tells you, maybe who is that sixth or seventh guy, depth piece, at least on the interior. I'm not going to be shocked if Rasheed Walker goes out there and gets the first crack in the first reps at left tackle to start camp. I almost kind of assume that's going to happen, where Jordan Morgan's going to kind of have to earn it, and take that job. And, he does have potentially some games and some weeks. And once they get pads on, hopefully that will kind of work itself out. But, yeah, that'll be interesting. And yeah, Sean Ryan, pressure's all on you. I think a lot of people have kind of written him off and kind of, hey, you had your shot. Like Riley said, he was okay. He was average. Will he kind of have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and have a good training camp and make that difficult a little more that decision a little more difficult? So, yeah, I mean, and I think Riley, you this is like your most excited part of training camp is when the pads go on and watching the O line and D line kind of go at it. So, that's going to be very fun, I think, to watch there in that second week when the pads do come on and kind of see who gets what reps and, the battles and the one-on-ones. But receiver, let's talk this a little bit more because, again, it's kind of a position battle, but more so just kind of the pecking order of, are guys going to have specific roles, how many three receiver sets are we going to see realistically? Four receiver sets are we going to see realistically? Is it going to be a lot more under center, multiple tight ends, multiple running backs? But just kind of looking at it now, what's just kind of your overall view of the wide receiver room, going into camp? Is it going to be a lot of these veteran guys, so to speak, probably going to get the first crack at it in the reps? You're going to get your Romeo Doubs and your your Jaden Reed and, Dontavian Wicks, that they're going to get a lot of the ones reps and Matthew Golden's going to be slowly worked in, or do you think LaFleur is going to take the training wheels off right away and give some of these younger guys and new additions, time to shine early on? What's kind of your view of the wide receiver room?
As far as Golden, I don't expect LaFleur to take the training wheels off. I think they're gonna bring him along slowly. I mean, I expect he won't get like significant uh reps playing time until probably halfway through the season, unless he just absolutely balls out and completely capitalizes on every opportunity he gets. For me, kind of, with the wide receivers, it's probably the biggest interesting story point for me is who are the two receivers that they throw out there if and when they go with two tight ends? Who are the two guys that they throw out there? Because it's been talked about how like Jaden Reed, he's not out there in the two receiver sets. He's out there in 3 and 4. So who are the two guys that they throw out there? Is it Dobbs and Wicks? Is it Dobbs and Golden? I mean, what combination do they go with? That's going to be most interesting part to me with the wide receivers.
Yeah, I kind of, and I threw that in the group chat this morning as a question too, is who's going to be their gadget wide receiver guy? Is that all literally they're going to do with Jaden Reed again, which I don't think any of us would be happy with. You have McCole Hardman, you have Savion Williams. Those seem like seems like a role better suited for those two. Hopefully Jaden Reed gets more looks as like a true wide receiver. Especially with Dobbs and Watson going into contract stuff's going to have to happen here, obviously. So Jaden Reed's not up yet. So looking to the future, is he capable of doing that stuff? Yeah, I think Jaden Reed needs to be more involved outside. I mean, I don't even know if any of us really know. Like we've seen flashes of him making these plays, but just as a true receiver, like what can he actually truly do? Um, and yeah, I mean, I think where they're going to be in, as long as Musgrave's healthy, unfortunately, I think they're going to be in a lot of more 22 personnel than I definitely want, and probably you guys want as well. I would hope that they're in wide receiver sets the majority of the time. I think that'd be their way to be the best 11. And I think they can go about 5 receivers deep there. Any of those 3 wide receiver combos out of 5 guys, I'd be okay with. And then, yeah, like I already brought up the gadget guy. What are they going to do there? I think Dobbs is going to be the number one, unless he has there's some, I don't know, issue in the locker room like there was last year. It's lingering. I don't know. It seems all good now. I think he's probably going to be the most talented. But like we said, well, I don't know if Wakes and Reed have really been given the same opportunities as well to really truly know. And yeah, as far as the rookies, I would assume Savion's gonna get brought into it a little bit slower. And then Golden, just with his experience at different colleges and obviously the last 2 years at Texas and all the routes that he ran, he can do anything. I don't see any reason why to slow play him into anything.
And we'll just kind of go right into our next storyline. I had this later on the list, but I think this is a smooth transition. Storyline number 2, with the pass catching group bounce back from the 2024 seasons. That's what we're talking about, wide receivers right now. And I think that's going to be a huge storyline just with all the drops and the inconsistency last season that we've talked about. I think a lot of underperforming. You specifically have talked about 2 of them, Jaden Reed and Tavian Wicks, probably had down years to like what a lot of Packer fans were hoping after, the year before what they saw from Wicks and a lot of excitement that they had. Tucker Kraft was probably like the one of the bright spots, I would say, like start to finish last season. So that kind of goes with, hey, now let's take it up another level. And I know when we went over our tight end preview, talked about, a lot of us, or all of us might think that he's a top 5 tight end already, but now it's time to kind of have that narrative across national media and kind of a coming out party for Tucker Kraft. But will this pass catcher group bounce back from 2024? I guess that's a very broad and I know difficult statement to kind of say right now, but that's got to be a pretty big storyline going into training camp, right? Because I think there's a lot of Packer fans that were all in on this offense going in a year ago, going into training camp, but now we're probably on the other side of that, where now they're going to have to win a lot of those Packer fans back, because I think there's a lot more, probably, I wouldn't say completely out, but definitely a lot more pessimism and not as much excitement and confidence maybe as going into the 2024 season, just with the struggles last year, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. This is kind of a difficult thing for me. Like how do you get all like the receiver room as a whole to elevate their game, because there's so many mouths to feed, it seems, in that room, and there's only one ball to throw. Um, how do you get all those guys enough playing time, enough reps where they're coming into the game, they don't have to think about what they're doing. They're just going out there and reacting. I don't know. I feel like 3 or 4 guys kind of need to establish themselves as like the main guys to throw out there every week. Otherwise, it's I don't know. To me, that just seems like it's gonna feel herky jerky and inconsistent again if you keep throwing 6, 7 guys out there. I don't know how you establish some kind of symmetry or synergy with offense with that many guys on the field. I don't know. I don't know how you do that. That's going to be one of the things that LaFleur is going to have to try to figure out this year, and I have no idea how they're going to go about doing that.
Yeah, they're in an interesting position where I think those first 4 receivers are going to separate themselves, but I think their best formation is going to be 3 wide receiver sets. So kind of like what Mike just said. How are they gonna? What 3 are going to be out there with Tucker Kraft? Obviously, is the fourth pass catcher, the tight end. Which receiver is going to have to learn 2 spots? I think it's Ben Dontavian Wicks, which I don't necessarily know if that's helped them. But to go back to Colin's initial question, to keep it simple, with the addition of Matthew Golden, I think we're all pretty high on him that he can help. And if you just, I mean, Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks can't drop that many balls again, right? Like they just that can't happen. So like just if they cut that in half and you add Golden, like I just don't know how the room and the pass catching and the receiving game isn't instantly better. Like you eliminate half those drops and you add a consistent guy that can run any route. That's obviously also a freak athlete to throw a deep ball to. Yeah, I think like I just don't know how they're not better.
Yeah. Because I think what's the old saying for offensive coordinators sometimes? Don't think plays, think players. Well, Packers kind of almost have like the complete opposite, kind of like some of those problems. I mean, maybe LaFleur has to think certain formations and certain instances for certain players. But like you said, there's a lot of mouths to feed. But the talent is there. I don't think there's any denying that. Like let's not forget like this. Going into last year's training camp, there was a lot of talk of like this could be a top 5, top 10 receiving core with Tucker Kraft and just passing offense in general. So it's not like the talent isn't there. I think just need to produce and be more consistent. And you mentioned the drops, I think is such a big thing. To me, if Tucker Kraft's also kind of really solidifies himself in this offense and LaFleur gets him the ball and Love gets him the ball in multiple ways, I think that takes them to a whole nother level as well of what they can do and work the middle of the field and kind of create mismatches and whatnot. So yeah, I mean it's gonna be very interesting. And I mean we haven't even really talked about Christian Watson. I mean apparently the rehab's going great ahead of schedule if that actually is true. And obviously I think he's still gonna at least miss the first half of the season, but if Christian Watson can come back too, like that's a whole nother piece potentially to add to this offense as well. And that's another mouth to feed. That could get very interesting towards that stretch run and going into the playoffs, hopefully. But yeah, it's a big group, and a lot of potential, and we'll kind of see what happens there. But kind of goes into this next one, and Mike mentioned it as well. Storyline number 3, we're going to stay on the offensive side of the ball. How does Matt LaFleur get the offense back on track? What does the offense look like? And we'll start with Riley because I know he's been very, very, very hard on this and very, I guess, just make up your damn mind. What does he have to do? What is training camp like? How do you fully utilize training camp to kind of build that foundation and get some confidence and get a rhythm and be ready to go week 1? Like what do the Packers need to do, or what would you want to see as a fan at training camp to kind of figure that out and kind of have that identity?
And I think, I mean, we'll see how connected him and Goody's vision are because I think Goody went out and basically said with like the signing of Aaron Banks, drafting Anthony Belton, obviously, and I think it goes back to the run they made 2 years ago and then the dismantling of them and the Cowboys in the play. It was all play action. I think that's what Jordan Love's best at. I think he can be just like a drop back passer, but I think he's best play action, get him out of the pocket. He is mobile, and I know he was hampered last year, so that could have been part of it. Maybe we're putting a lot more heat on LaFleur than we need to because he just couldn't call that. But when he was healthy, just that first 3 quarters or 3.5 quarters of the Eagles game, it was not a play action team. They were slinging it. Maybe that was the surface in Brazil. Like it was shitty, slippery. They didn't even think. Maybe they thought Love couldn't do his long play actions and roll out without slipping. I have no idea. Nobody knows unless anybody asks LaFleur straight up, and I've never heard that answer. So I think just getting back to running the ball, which is obviously they did last year, but then play action out of it, getting him out of the pocket, not in the pocket, play action out of the pocket. All these receivers are athletic freaks. They get separation. So just the long drag, stuff like that, I think is what they excel at. Even with the addition of Golden, obviously with how athletic Kraft is and his run after catch ability, all these things cater to that. Just an old school run the ball, play action, dump it off, let your athletes make plays. Um, yeah, I think that is what I want to see. So, I mean, I don't know how they really show that in training camp. I'm not sure they're gonna work it all, right? They want to see if Love can go through progressions. Obviously, Halfley's defense needs work too, so they want to do that. They both need to get better at those things. So I really don't know if we'll see the full identity in training camp at all. Because, like I just said, they want to see if Love can get through progression, sitting in the pocket, because it's a 2-minute drill to win the game or the end of the half or whatever. Or if a team's just stacking the box, they still need to know if Jordan Love can sit back in the pocket and just go through 4 or 5 route combinations and progressions and see if he can pick the defense apart. He's got to do that if they want to win a Super Bowl, obviously. Um, but yeah, I think we all can agree that play action and rollout game and all that stuff is probably what we would all lean towards, especially with what Jordan's Love's skill set is and all the athletes as he has the throw to.
Yeah, and I don't have too much to add to what Riley just said there. I was gonna talk. Play action game is probably number one. Getting under center, uh, play action from under center for sure is kind of the big point for me. Is now that Jordan Love should have a healthy knee, healthy groin, he should be able to work all that. And I think if they can get that part of the game going, along with that, what should be a pretty healthy running game, we're all hoping with that massive offensive line now. That should be able to help LaFleur get his offense back on track.
And we talked about this earlier in the LaFleur episode too, because I think it's a big part of it's on offense is the emotions, like keep the emotions in check a little bit, grow up a little bit, LaFleur. If things don't go well, adjust a little bit better. Again, I know not a ton of training camp stuff, but that's just things that he has to work on, and that's a good part here earlier in the season to work on. So, yeah, Matt LaFleur I think is going to be a huge piece to this offense success. Yeah, Mike.
I was just gonna say, just going back to like the emotional piece. I mean, we saw like Nick Sirianni, 2 of the last 3 years he's been in the Super Bowl, won it last year. Like he's a very emotional, fiery coach. So I don't know that like feel like his team kind of leans into it a little bit, but I don't know that it has that profound of an effect on it. I don't know. What do you?
Sirianni doesn't call plays. If LaFleur is going to give up play calling, he can do whatever the hell he wants. But if it fucks with his play calling and his thinking, which I think it does, that's my only issue with it.
Okay, that's fair, Riley.
I will say if he does exactly what I said, and fucking brings out 3 wide receiver set with Tucker Kraft at tight end and Stadium Williams is in the backfield as running back, I'll shut up about LaFleur all season because you listen to me. That's all I want to see when I go to training camp, just like one time. If he does that, I'll shut up the rest of the season.
All right. Let's go our last storyline on the offensive side of the ball. We have 2 left, but this is number 4 that we're excited about. It all starts at Jordan Love. He was all of our consensus most important, most impactful Packers player in last week's list for them to have success. Will Jordan Love finally finally take off and kind of mimic what we saw a couple of years ago in that last half of the season? Can he do that and put it together for a full season? Can he stay healthy for a full season? I know a lot of like expert lists and just lists around the league don't have him as a top 10 quarterback right now. So can Jordan Love's kind of build some confidence in camp and get some rhythm and just kind of get back to maybe what we saw a couple of years ago? And I know it's a little easier said than done because there's a lot of different factors to it, but just focusing on Jordan Love himself, my storyline is, will Jordan Love emerge as a consensus top 10 quarterback this season? Intriguing, important. Thoughts on that?
Can he do that? Absolutely. He has all the talent in the world. We've all seen that. Will he? TBD. See if he can. I mean, second half of last year, he cut down on the turnovers. I think he kind of avoided the middle of the field a little bit more in the second half there than he did in the first. Maybe some of that was decision making. Maybe some of that was routes by the receivers, not making the right adjustments. Who knows? We don't know the play calls. We don't know how it's supposed to be run. So I think it's going to take a group effort between Jordan, coaches, his receivers, his line. I mean, none of this really happens in a vacuum, right? Everything needs to work in tandem. So all that being said, I think they have all the talent and the expertise on their side to help him get there. And I'm gonna go on the optimistic side here. Yes, he will establish himself as a top 10 quarterback. I don't think that's too far off from where he is now. I don't think that's too crazy to say at all either.
Yeah, I think you will. I think you will. I think that he's been in the system long enough. He knows how the floor works. He knows all the terminology. Hopefully, and we all think they're going to get back to play action. I think the only thing that can derail this is, I think you ask this question again in a month and we look at the injury report and how soon Elton Jenkins stops or whatever they pay him, or he just gives it up, whatever. I think you look at that because obviously the center quarterback relationship is huge. And then, like I said, looking at the injury report, is the offensive line healthy through training camp and in the preseason games? To God, Josh Jacobs, obviously, he should, if he touches a freaking preseason game field, I'll freak out. Shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, those are the only two things I think that can derail Jordan Love, obviously, because he has all the talent. Like, we've seen it. He easily is in that 7 to 9 range, in my opinion, like ranked quarterbacks in the NFL, just going through it. I did earlier today, just had him, whatever, the top 6, 7, I think are pretty clear cut, 6, but then like you can't just like straight up tell me. You could argue and probably out argue me, but you can't just like say like, oh yeah, he's better after you get through the first 6, in my opinion. So I think he does, as long as injury wise and everybody and Elton Jenkins and situation gets figured out.
Yeah, and I think even more so this training camp, those 2 joint practices that they're going to have with the Colts and the Seahawks, I think that's going to be extremely important for the offense. And I think for Jordan Love especially, because I'm assuming if he's going to see any reps in preseason games, usually the starters don't see a ton. I would not be surprised if he doesn't get any. Those are going to be super important, and I think that'll be some tell to see, I guess, just where the offense is going into week 1 against the Lions. But always fun, and we'll try to get down to the joint practice, especially the Seahawks, because Seahawks got a pretty decent defense, and we'll be able to give them some different looks there, and kind of a nice some walkthrough, I guess, before week 1 and the regular season begins. But yeah, Jordan Love is he's got the keys, and see where he can take it. So I think he answers the call as well. I don't know. I don't think he was like as bad as maybe a lot of Packer fans thought last year. I just think maybe he was just good. And again, if we're going to pay him what we paid him and the extension he got, you need him to be better, just good. I think he needs to take it to a whole nother level and win some games. And he's like I said, he's got the playmakers. He's got a pretty good offensive line, we think. So hopefully this is the year he finally takes off. But all right, storyline number 5, and maybe the most exciting one. And this is my most exciting one. I'm gonna assume maybe your guys is as well as the other side of the ball. Just what we saw from Jeff Hafley in season number 1. Now, storyline number 5 that we have on our list. What will this defense look like year 2 under Jeff Hafley, with a lot of returning faces, some exciting new additions, some exciting draft picks potentially? You got to think like top 5 is like the ceiling again of like what this unit can be, right? I would have to think if everything goes right, of course, if the pass rush gets figured out, they turn offenses over again like the rate that they did this last year. Obviously, that helps substantially. But I know just within this, there's a couple storylines you guys each want to talk about as well. But as a Packers fan, how freaking excited are we year 2 under Jeff Hafley? I mean, there's got to be a ton of excitement. Does it match maybe what we were excited about of the offense's potential last year going into training camp? Is that kind of the same feel almost that we have on the defensive side of the ball here with year 2 under Hafley? Or do you still think there's a lot of question marks that we need answered, during these next month or so?
I'm not going to use the word excited. I'm cautiously optimistic. The defensive line, the rushing, that I got to see that improve before I'll truly be excited. I need to see some real energy, some real production out of that group first 3-4 weeks consistently before I'll really be excited. And using that to play in tandem with the secondary on the back end. Hopefully they're shutting down players on the back end, making plays back there. Yeah, we'll see. I'm very much wait and see on this group. See if they can continue their performance from last year.
I'm the exact opposite. I'm pumped because I think Hafley is a psychopath. I think we didn't see shit about what his defense or what he actually wants his defense to be because the pass rush was so bad. I think if you get athletic linebackers like he has out there and they're all healthy, and obviously Quay's already showing up hurt, so he's already fucking it up, which he pisses me off in general. So there's nothing to add to my list. Yeah, I think he's got a little. I think we could see. And I'm not saying he's going to be like a Brian Flores up there in Minnesota, like that psychotic, but I think he's got a little bit of crazy to him. And like I just said with the athletic linebackers, if you get edge, obviously we're all super high on edge, and if he can take that next step to being one of the best linebackers in the NFL, like we've talked about, Quay, Isaiah Simmons, I'm obviously high on him. I just think there's a lot of crazy stuff he can do. And just along with the storylines that like I brought up earlier and we've talked about, what's going to happen at DB? How's that going to shake out? Who's going to be the third nickel corner, right? Is it going to be Hobbs in there? Is it going to be Bullard? How's that going to go? Who's going to be the two outside guys? Collins brought up who's the second defensive end going to be? Is it going to be Van Ness? Is it he just going to suck? Is it going to be Sorrell out of nowhere, the drafted guy out of Texas? And obviously, like I just brought up edge, like, and I want this to happen. I've said this. Who's going to call the defense? Quay's starting out gone. Are they just going to slide edge into there? And is he going to start at Mike because Quay's out? Or are they going to just be stubborn and maybe they truly just see him as a Sam guy and is Hopper going to get all the reps at number 1 till Quay comes back? Or are they going to have McDuffie learn 2 spots at Will and Mike? Or how are they going to rotate these guys through? So the linebacker room, especially with Quay out, gets super interesting. And I've obviously, like I just said, I want edge to call the defense. I think Quay's better if he can just play. I think, and I've sent you guys like a clip or 2 before and just stuff where you can tell he's making calls and he just gets lost on like basic stuff on like what his gap responsibility is. And it's like very basic, like literally like a soft high school level shit that he fucks up. Like, oh, I have B gap, and then he just moves for no fucking reason. Then the running back runs right through fucking B gap, and it's like, dude, everybody in the field can see this fucking hole that you're literally supposed to be standing in. Um, yeah, less think for him, more athlete, just take over is probably as Nick Sirianni kind of once said. I think is best for him. Edge seems a lot more calm, smarter. Another year in the system. Um, and yeah, I mean, he's starting with practice, and Quay's not. So I don't know what Quay's injury is. I don't think anybody said. We probably won't find out till Wednesday. Know how long he's actually going to be out for. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of questions, and I think Halfley, there's a lot of crazy shit that he wants to do. I don't know if he can do it, but I'm excited for the potential with how athletic they are past their front four. I think everybody else they can put like they can literally put out three linebackers. Like they can put out the seven guys. They can stay big with three linebackers, four DBs, and they can have seven guys out there that literally all run 4.4s or under. Like that's Edge, Quay, Isaiah Simmons are all three linebackers that literally run 4.4s, if not lower. Like Simmons ran a 4.3 at the combine, however long ago. I mean, he's still in his prime. He's not that old yet. Like they can be athletic, crazy, position versatile. McKinney's obviously a mad scientist back there. Williams in year two, I think they can rotate jobs more. Doesn't have to be like, oh, he's a rookie. He's just got to play back. He's going to be more confident. Same with Bullard, the second year jump. And then yeah, just Nixon and Hobbs out there. That's be my guys I want. I've said that, but they have versatile with Valentine as well. So they can just do so. They can just do so much. And I think as long as everybody stays healthy, he can beat pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think for me, it definitely starts on the back end with McKinney. I think if they're going to be where they want to get to defensively, I think you can't have any regression from him. I think he's got to kind of just maintain or take his game to even a whole nother level. Very important. Like, do I expect him to like match the interception like amount? Like, no, but I think there's still ways that he can impact the game on the back end and just kind of his leadership. And like Riley said, just like the thought of offenses knowing that he's back there to have them think twice of where they're going to throw it or what plays they're going to call, I think is such a big impact on that end. So I think him not regressing and taking a step back, because I think we've seen that so many times from new additions is they have, great first years and then they maybe take a step back that second year. Devondre Campbell, prime example a few years ago, how good he was that first year and just absolutely sucked the second year. Not saying, they're similar, but just, an example. But yeah, I think secondary is very intriguing because like, is there going to be like in the corner room? Is there going to be really a true like star? Like, yeah, they'll release like the depth chart and they'll release the ones and whatnot. But I think it's so interchangeable on that back end of who can play where and where Halfley's going to play them. Of is Hobbs going to play both on the outside and inside or strictly inside? You mentioned Valentine can be a little versatile and Nixon even can be a little versatile. So Bullard, obviously mixing him at corner. Or is he going to play a little of the safety? So like the back end can be very, very fun, and he can do so many different things. And then, yeah, I mean, defensive line, Rashawn Gary, I think that's probably where it all starts, right? He's got to up his game. He's got to get back on track. And, if he has a repeat of last year and can't finish, we talked about how he's so good at creating pressures. He's so good up until actually completing the sack. Can we finally get that last 10% from him and get the double-digit sack numbers? Because if we can do that, that takes maybe a lot of pressure off the other side of who the number 2 and number 3 guys are going to be, and then takes a little pressure off the back end as well. So, yeah, I'm excited for Halfley's year 2 because I said I think we're going to see a lot more things that we didn't see. I think it was pretty vanilla in a sense. Like very vanilla and just, I think just very like big improvements from the previous resume and who was there. So I think he can take it to a whole nother level and create some chaos defensively. So, all right, those are our top 5 storylines. But gentlemen, was there any honorable mentions that we did not get to that you're excited about before we can get into the final drive and have some bold takes and whatnot? But those were pretty much, I know that was kind of technically more than 5 with the subcategories within them, but that kind of covers, I think, a big chunk. Maybe number 6 is, do we finally not have to worry about special teams?
I was just gonna say.
or at least the specialists. Maybe not special teams as a whole, but the specialists.
So do we see Nixon return at all? Is he gonna be back there for taking punts and kicks at all, or is it all just Hardman and Savion or whoever they want to put back there? I think that's a very small storyline. I don't know, because he said last year, but he kind of backed off. But then they got Hardman and Savion, so I think that's a little bit of a storyline. It'll get answered very quickly, but it's a storyline.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, it does feel good to have at least the specialists set. And sort of, I saw they released a kicker going into camp today, so maybe might not be any competition. Maybe this whole training camp, and those guys are good to go. But
I don't want to. I'm sorry to throw this out into the ether there, but how panicked are Packers fans going to be if McManus just completely struggles in camp? Welcome into the Dairyland.
I don't think I will at all. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. I guess if he doesn't if he's like fucking below 50%, maybe, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I'll be interested to see if, since he's the only kicker now, how much they actually he's old. I don't know how much. Remember, Mason Crosby's last 5 years, you barely saw him because you don't want to wear his leg down. I don't even know how much we'll see him, to be honest. Maybe 2 kicks of practice, probably.
yeah, I feel like he's just to the savvy veteran point where I'm guessing they have full kind of trust in him, and yeah, maybe a few kicks a day in the public at least. I'm sure he'll do all of his stuff inside where no one can see things, but I'm sure he's kind of got the respect of, hey, he can make the layups and all. I mean, that's what he did last year too, and some of the cakes. But
They have 3 roster spots open still now too. So what are they by chance actually going to bring in somebody notable name? Probably not. But I mean the D line room is kind of they released 2 defensive tackles. So I mean they have numbers, but those first 5 are guys we expect to play. So I don't know how much they want to just straight up practice them. The linebacker room is very thin now without Quay. The DB room is very thin because they have a couple of guys out there. So I think they got to really address the defense, but just guys to practice.
okay, well, that is all of our top storylines heading into training camp in just a couple of days. We record this on a Monday. Training camp starts on Wednesday. It is time now, though, for the final drive, and we kind of made a last-minute switch. We're saving a fun one, I think, for next episode. But just because training camp is this week, we got a few things that we're each going to kind of go over. Our boldest training camp take or prediction, our biggest roster cut surprise, and our biggest surprise player to make the roster. All right, so 3 categories here, and we'll go one by one. I'm going to save the boldest training camp prediction take for last. So let's start with your biggest surprise player to make the roster. So this is the 53-man roster that is going to enter the regular season. Who is going to be, and again, this doesn't have to be a super hot stove take. It can be, just somewhat surprising, maybe surprising to you, or maybe surprising to a majority of Packer fans. But we'll start with Riley. Who is your biggest surprise player to make the roster, that 53?
Yeah, kind of like you just said, mine's not steaming hot, but none of us had him making the team in our 53-man thing. And I think people have talked about him. We've brought him up just because of how good he was in college, and he transferred and he wasn't as good, but he's still solid. But I don't think this room for the Packers is that great, besides those first 3 that I've talked about. But I'm going to go with Jamin Dumas-Johnson, the linebacker, the undrafted. Played at Georgia, was All-American, won a national championship, got injured, transferred to Kentucky, still somewhat productive. Kentucky just wasn't that good, so he kind of dropped off the face of the earth. I mean, I've talked about, I don't think the backups. I mean, you got the first 2, you got Edge, you got Quay. They paid McDuffie. I think he'll stay, obviously. But after that, it's kind of a question mark. I don't know if they're super high in any of them. So like I said, I don't know how much of a surprise it is, but I don't think many people have him maybe probably in the practice squad, right? But I guess if I had to pick somebody going through it, that's the one that popped into my head that I liked the most. Jamin Dumas Johnson as a making the team as an inside backer.
That's interesting because I also went linebacker here, and I went with I went with Christian Welch. Um, so he was cut last year at the end of camp, right? I think a lot of people kind of expected him to make the roster, and he was kind of for a surprise cut at the end of last year. I think his kind of biggest thing was that he was really good on special teams. So maybe he can be another special teams demon again this year. Um, just one little thing to point out that would leave them. So if player starts on the PUP, are they taking up a roster spot or no?
I believe
Yes.
so. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was gonna say if Quay starts the season on PUP, I wasn't sure if he was taking up a roster spot or not. So right now, I would have them taking 6 linebackers if they kept Welch. So that would be a surprise if he did make the team.
Okay. A couple linebackers. I went on defense as well. I think there's going to be a surprise in the secondary and the corner position. I think that comes down to a couple people. I think that's going to be one of the last battles, but I still think Jonathan Baldwin finds himself on the roster. I think they're very high on him. I think he's starting on the list as well, potentially either the non-football injury list or something going into camp, but I think he's going to find an impact on special teams. They gave him a lot of money guaranteed for an undrafted free agent. I think they just kind of like what he brings on the outside into that room, and I think there's going to be some roles in like I said, mainly special teams, but Jonathan Baldwin, I think, is going to be like the fifth or sixth corner, depending how many they keep. I would not be surprised if he makes that roster and keeps that undrafted free agent kind of record going that the Packers tend to have. But on the other side of it, the biggest roster cut surprise. Mike, we will start with you this time. For when we are narrowing down to the 53 man, who is going to be, in your opinion, or just a bold take, the biggest roster cut surprise?
So I struggled with this one, honestly. I didn't There's so many players that I feel like can make it. Like there's probably more than 53 that can make it, obviously. Um, so I'm actually gonna switch up from what I have written down here, and he was on my initial 53 man roster prediction. Um, but I'm gonna say Emmanuel Wilson is cut.
Okay.
Mine's kind of playing off my roster surprise make. So Jamin Dumas Johnson making the team. So that means I'm going to have Tyron Hopper, which nobody's really said not make the team. So I think he gets cut. I think he has he hasn't done anything. He's been banged up. I don't know. He's was he a third or a fourth round pick? So I don't think they probably want to get rid of him, but he's been in the league 2 years already. He hasn't done anything. This is his third year. So I think if he has a below average training camp and preseason and Jamin does anything worth a shit, I think this is it's possible, right? So I don't know how big of a surprise it is, but I haven't heard anybody say it. So I'll just go with Tyron Hopper.
All right. Well, I'm going to switch mine up because Mike switched his up to mine with Emmanuel Wilson. So I'll switch it up to on the fly here. And I think we've kind of mentioned this when we talked defensive line in edge rusher preview, where I think there's a lot of guys there fighting, depending how many they keep. I think they try to trade him, but I would not be surprised, and that's why he's going to be my biggest roster cut surprise. It's going to be Kingsley Ekbari is going to be my biggest roster cut surprise. It was that your other one? So
That was the guy I was going to go with initially. Yeah.
that's funny. Again, I think this one could be pretty bold, but I just think there's a lot of bodies in that room, and he seems like he's okay. And I think you know what you get out of him, but I just don't think he's going to be like your true number two, number three. I think he's just more of a depth piece and a situational guy. And I think you have maybe younger guys and other bodies that can fill that a little bit more. So I think he might get traded, but I think ultimately he gets cut and he's going to be like one of the biggest surprises of getting not making that 53. So I guess me and Mike were on the same page there. How about that? Okay. That leads us to the last one. The boldest training camp prediction or hot take. I will get started. I think this has been talked about numerous times in previous episodes, and I might steal it from one of you. I guess we will see. My boldest take is Romeo Doubs does not make it out of training camp with the Packers. He will be on another roster by the time the season starts. I think
By a cut or trade?
he's going to get traded. I think he will ultimately get traded. I think there's going to be some injuries around the league or teams looking to add that one final piece. I do not think Romeo Doubs is going to be on the Packers next season. I do not think they bring him back. I don't think he's on the list or probably going to even have any conversations. So if they can get any sort of draft capital for him and still have, we mentioned earlier with the wide receiver room of how many mouths there are to feed, potentially Watson coming back at the halfway point in the season, I think you have guys there that can still be effective and keep this ceiling high for this offense. So Romeo Doubs, will he go to the Steelers? I don't know. Probably not. They've been super active. I know I've seen Titans, Chargers. Yeah, with Mike Williams just retiring out of nowhere this past week. But that's my bold take is I do not think Romeo Doubs makes it out of training camp with the Packers. I think he will be traded and be on another roster by the start of week 1.
Who do you want to go next?
We're gonna save Mike for last. We'll go Riley here.
All right, so my bold, I think it's a bold take, but I've been saying this for months now. So mine would just be Rasheed Walker gets traded before the end of training camp. Like I said, I'm pretty emphatic that they want Jordan Morgan. Goody wants to be right. He wants Jordan Morgan to be his left tackle. You don't want to pay Rasheed Walker the left tackle contract because that's arguably the third, fourth most important position in the NFL. So yeah, I think whether it's I've said, the Chiefs don't figure out their left tackle spot. Maybe they need one. He's the best available. Somebody has an injury, something. So yeah, I think just with the two combinations, they don't want to pay him and they want Jordan Morgan to take his spot anyways. I think Rasheed Walker gets traded before the season starts.
All right. So my bold prediction is that Luke Musgrave is going to show out in camp. Riley, yeah,
Steaming hot.
He-
Okay.
yeah. They've been talking him up in the off season. Who knows? Maybe it's just coach speak. Could be, but I got to take them at their word. He's going to show up. He's going to catch the balls. He's not going to drop too many. I think he's going to show up more so as a receiver, maybe not as much as a blocker as they would like. But I think he's going to show up in a big way in the receiving aspect in training camp, and he's gonna impress a lot of people. What, Riley? What do you got to say to that?
Did you guys see his wedding pictures from this? This is so mean. This is so just out of bounds for me. But like, dude, you're not a fucking cowboy. Like, okay, Tucker Kraft doesn't have to wear a cowboy hat. We know he's a fucking redneck tough guy farmer. Luke Musgrave, you can wear whatever the fuck you want. You're never gonna sell that. So those pictures just made me hate him so much more. He sucks. He can't catch the ball. He has no ball skills. I hope you're right that he's actually functional and can like catch this year because he can stretch the field. He's athletic, but like he's just not good. Like I don't know. He cannot track the ball. He's not going to block anybody because he's like you said, he's not tough. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to say that that's just not gonna. I just don't see a world where he does anything productive.
Well, that's why it's a bold prediction, Riley.
Okay. There you go.
Very bold.
Spicy hot. Spicy hot. All right. Well, all of us have different ones, so I do like that. But cool. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? Excitement. I think all three of us are planning to go to training camp at some point, hopefully. I know two of us at least. Mike's up in the air in person, but yeah, a lot of excitement. I know this first week or first few practices is just a lot of Jordan Love looks great throwing on air. So and so looks good catching the ball on air and shell. The real fun stuff is when pads go on, and that'll be a fun episode to kind of recap everything. But any final takes, Packers training camp or the league in general that's happened in the last week, or sports in general before we get out of here?
It's just been a great start to the week. Scotty Scheffler winning another major. I mean, dude's just unconscious out on the golf course. Brewers winning 10 in a row, sweeping the Dodgers, tied for the best record in baseball. And yeah, training camp's right around the corner, so it's been a great week so far.
Soccer wise, it's all coming back in a couple weeks. My Bournemouth squad opens up season. I think it's like the third week of August, so that's coming up. There's preseason matches. There's transfers going on. I just stubbed a goalie now because ours left. Otherwise, haven't done shit. So I don't know how it's going to go for us. And then the next couple days is the Euro women's semis, and within our group chat. And this is my take: is women's soccer at the international level is fucking the best form. It's so much better than watching the guys. It just like there's actually like strategy and tactical, and they fucking actually are tough and play and don't act like they're gonna die from every fucking thing. The women's soccer internationally is the best in my opinion. Like it's just the most heated. They go at it.
Yeah, the knockout like rounds here been incredible. I think it's just been entertainment for all the games so far. So I think it can be a couple good semifinals as well. Brewers. I read an article, Bleacher Report. I don't know if you saw that they had their second half predictions. And number 10 on the Bleacher Report's 10 predictions for the second half of the MLB season was that the Brewers will win a World Series.
So, holy shit, that was. I didn't even know if I'd go that far.
That was what that's what it said. Bleacher Report had that as their last prediction for the second half of the season. So we'll see. Be interesting to see if they add anyone too. I know they've been maybe a position player, maybe a third baseman. I think their pitching's fine, but will they stay put or try to add? I think that'll be intriguing as well. But yeah, they are hot, and they're playing their way into sneaky World Series contender. I think that you kind of have to start looking out for, especially just dominating the Dodgers now back-to-back series, who are kind of in a freeze spot.
Ozrowski's going to win Cy Young, so
if he gets enough innings and qualifies, he in the conversation, I guess. All right, well, everyone, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode of previewing training camp. Tell us what you're looking forward to most for training camp this upcoming week. Who's your biggest roster cut surprise? Who's your biggest player to make the roster? What's your boldest take for training camp? Let us know in the comments. Again, keep sharing the Dairyland Drive podcast to everyone on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We enjoy doing this every week and appreciate everyone that listens. So thank you again for listening. But for Collin, Mike, and Riley, enjoy your week. Enjoy the start of training camp. We will be back next week to recap the first week of training camp with the Packers. But that's all for this episode. Have a good one.
love y'all.